Okay, we're live. Let's get started. Welcome everybody at a new Bytes of Innovation webinar. Bytes of Innovation is a webinar series that is powered by Segmed, a company that provides real-world imaging data to researchers. What we do at Bytes of Innovation is we invite key opinion leaders to talk about the future of healthcare. The show is co-hosted by Dr. Aline Lutz, who is the VP of Real-World Evidence and Clinical Insights at Segmed, and by myself. My name is Martin Willemink. I'm co-founder and Chief Scientific Officer at Segmed. So to all the people in the audience, make sure to put your questions in the chat box so that we can discuss them after the presentation of today during the Q&A phase of the webinar. Today, I am proud to announce that we have here Denise Meade, and she is the Vice President of Life Sciences and MedTech at Verily. She has operated at the intersection of healthcare and technology for more than 2 decades and now is responsible for commercializing and scaling Verily solutions. Before Verily, she held leadership roles at Microsoft and at IBM Watson Health. She also serves as advisory board member for digital and emerging health solutions. Education-wise, she holds her MBA from Harvard Business School and her dual Bachelor's of Science in Finance from Northeastern University and the University of Reims Management School in France. And today, Denise is going to talk about unlocking real-world imaging data with Verily Pre and Segmed. Denise, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be with you and to join your participants today. We've really enjoyed working with Segmed. And all right, so as we get started, just a caveat that, as you know, we have we may have forward-looking statements, and we believe it's important to just communicate our product direction to customers. So they may involve some uncertainties. So the information that is shared in this presentation is not legal or has any other obligation to deliver what we discuss. And some of the content may reflect our aspirations and may not be included in the current roadmap. So we're happy to talk about everything that we talk about today, but just want to make sure that everyone understands some of the visionary documents that we're going to share here with you today. I'm going to start a little bit with really where our roots are from. So Verily Health, for those of you that don't know, were born at Google X more than a decade ago. And our mission that we set up at the time remains our mission today, which is really to make the world's healthcare information useful so that people can lead healthier lives. Over this decade, we've been key participants and leaders in some really novel and interesting ways to use data. And I'll just highlight a couple of them as really examples of things that put critical data at its heart, and then advanced computing and approaches to unlock significant value. In 2017, we established the baseline health study. With this study, we enrolled more than 750,000 participants to establish a baseline of health. For a subset of that population, we went very deep, and I like to say we collected the blood, sweat, and tears from them over the course of the 4-year study by coming into our in-house labs and doing genomic testing. And what we really found and established from this study, which was really groundbreaking at the time, is that participants and patients really feel much more empowered in part of their own healthcare destination if they're given the information themselves, if they have virtual appointments in between all of those physical appointments, and if they're also described like the information, what the information means for their health. And so from this, we really are able to now do a multitude of other solutions that really draw on those core principles where we put the patient really at the center of care. We've also worked with a number of companies to develop really unique device data, digital biomarkers in the areas of a number of CNS disorders, whether that's Parkinson's or sleep. And we've also been working and innovating with organizations like the CDC and the US government around really what we can do with wastewater data. So what can we tell about like the health of our population to inform things, which, as you know, during times of things like COVID-19 were really crucial to understanding on the ground infectious data. Throughout this time, we've also worked very closely with really unique organizations, including those like Segmed, that are bringing and developing their own data into research organizations, into life sciences organizations, into healthcare organizations, to really use data as much as possible to inform the research, the development, or the commercialization and care that they're providing to patients. So it's a little bit about Verily Health, and it really, as we kind of transition, I just want to mention and go over some of the real key challenges that we're seeing in the market, what we're trying to solve, and that will really set the stage for also how organizations and data that's coming from Segmed can really help and address some of these challenges. The first one is really what we think about as that AI performance paradox. As you know, AI is at the top of everyone's mind. It's figuring out where and how AI should be used, but a critical point of that is really making sure that it is not just used at a pilot stage, but really how do you scale it? And we're seeing significant challenges in the data bottlenecks where model performance is stalling. Many AI projects are actually being stopped or stalled if they just don't have enough and sufficient data. So we're really seeing the demand from our clients come from where do we, not just how can we do AI or how can we deploy a model, but how do we get that right type of data? We're also seeing that it's not just about how we can get that data outside, but also where do we see the data that we have from internal and inside of our organization. So we have many clients across the industry that we really see have separated and internal data silos, whether this is from how they've grown up through maybe mergers and acquisitions, or from a governance standpoint, really where they want to create a physical firewall. And this really enhances and accelerates essentially like a fragmentation and kind of this idea of having islands, right? And so what we really want to see organizations shift to, and some of the investments that we're making, is really that is really through providing a single pane where organizations, inside of an organization, you can view and access a variety of data assets, but they're always governed and they're always driven by kind of having that visibility, the right use case, the right access, and the right skills to use them. We also see a really strong need to discuss and share about how to use AI responsibly. Every day, I think you can probably look into the news and find another organization who has identified misuse of data, misuse of access, or misuse of AI. So we really believe that governance is the engine of trust that's really required to move AI to scale. There's a significant number of organizations really that are looking at how do we put in that responsible AI foundation using things like trusted research environments to create secure co-analysis, not just within their organization, but also with partners. So whether you're an academia organization or a health system or a pharmaceutical company, the benefits from working together to access both new data types and actually have that shared collaboration site are tremendous. And so we really are looking at investing and accelerating the industry in building that responsible AI foundation. So really, in summary, we think about these challenges in terms of data accessibility, AI adoption and skills and governance as not only a barrier, but really an opportunity that life sciences companies can overcome with a really good infrastructure and more participants in the ecosystem. So from a Verily perspective, we have released our precision health platform, which we call Pre. It is an AI native platform that's really optimally built for precision health. The best thing I can say about the platform is it's not something we just sell, but it's something that we use to build every one of our first-party solutions. So every one of our first-party data sets that we build, every one of our care programs that we offer are built and on this platform. And really that starts from just the life cycle of data, really on the left side, bringing in all types of different data. So whether that's medical imaging data, which we'll talk about today, clinical data, disease registry data, financial claims data, we bring that all in and specialize really in the harmonization and curation of that. We do that through a really robust set of automation and AI models, which have been built, tested, and trained over a number of years with our advanced data scientists here to make the data AI ready, and then eventually develop the AI models, which we feel like really are important for care, insight, and delivery. We can then deploy those in a number of ways. We do it within life sciences and pharma for things like advancing how you collect real-world data or digitize protocols. We do it in payers and self-insured employers to deliver weight loss programs. And we do it within health systems to help them accelerate the access and insights from their on-premise healthcare data. So really a very wide range of how we develop and use this platform internally. Similarly, this whole platform can really be used by anyone within the industry to build your own healthcare data system, and particularly through these three components that I can talk a little bit more. So the refinery is really our data curation engine, where you can do things like ingest patient health records from a variety of sources, or ingest multimodal data and create OMOP or FHIR standards data sets with ease. I'm going to go to the right, actually. Workbench is our core of the trusted research environment, where really data scientists, bioinformatics, precision medicine health researchers use this Workbench solution to manage all of their data, to work with it, to create data sets and collections which are fully governed. And then they can also deploy a number of either their own tools or third-party tools through a very open source platform, things like using R, Jupyter, things like that within Workbench. And then lastly, in the center is really what we have as Exchange, which allows us to really facilitate data sets, models, and agents to a larger population. So for example, we're going to talk about Segmed, who has an amazing breast cancer data set up on our Exchange today. So for those life science clients who are interested, they can access Exchange and access the Segmed data set alongside other data sets like the All of Us research data set or a target ALS data set, and kind of bring that all together to co-analyze data sets. But everything is really strongly governed and enabled by what the data sponsor puts up into the Exchange. So a little bit more on Exchange, and specifically why we're excited to have Segmed as part of Exchange. So as we said, you can really find any of the data that you need in Exchange. We find our thousands of researchers are on Exchange in order to access multimodal data sets that range from clinical data to genomic data to financial data. And everyone uses it a little bit differently, but really the main benefits really are being able to access that with ease, with strong governance, and then also being able to co-analyze it. Segmed specifically, and what we have on there today, although we are looking forward to also having some additional data sets. We have a really deep breast cancer imaging data set, more than 500 patients who have full longitudinal tracking that includes prior and follow-up exams, expert annotations, and free text clinical reports over a period of 7 years. So this data set is extremely deep and rich as you think about all of our life science clients who are investing in breast cancer treatments and solutions. Historically, they've really had to go to individual clinics or health systems and then have to bring in all of the curation themselves. So having Segmed join our exchange has really opened up a number of kind of unique and novel use cases. And in particular, we're seeing interest around these 4 core use cases, which include AI model development and validation, where folks are really using this data set to think about training, enriching, and validating their AI models for advanced tumor segmentation. They may also be looking at really post-market surveillance, thinking about the long-term safety and real-world effectiveness of their current solutions because of that clinical data that's part of it. As they think about their real future research and development, they're thinking about how to improve their precision and looking to uncover novel biomarkers, predict that therapy response, and really tailor the personalized treatments using, again, kind of those AI-driven radiomics. And then lastly, really thinking about within clinical development, how do you use this data to really optimize the design and particularly maybe adapt treatment based on real-time tumor volume measures, which, as you know, specifically in oncology adaptive trials are critically important. So with that, that's kind of the summary of the overview of the challenges that we're seeing in the industry, where and how Verily is investing, and why we're excited to partner and have Segmed on our data exchange.
Thank you so much, Denise. Great presentation. And it's very interesting to learn how these platforms are connected and how they cover all the steps necessary for real-world data research and precision medicine use cases. So my first question is to understand a bit more about the problem. So we know that many organizations have a lot of data, but they still struggle to generate real impact from this data. So where do you think this disconnect typically happen? What is the main problem there?
I think it's a good question. Historically, medical imaging data has really been in high demand, but very difficult to access. It's oftentimes locally stored, and so just moving it up into the cloud can be both time-consuming, but also financially challenging. And then if you add on to that accessibility, really the desire to have it in combination with clinical data, that's really blocked healthcare innovation so far. So this partnership really, addresses that, integrating the high value alongside the clinical data into the precision health ecosystem that we're building. Ultimately, I think our goal is really to shift the industry from like a slow kind of manual data procurement model into more of an on-demand AI research model, where researchers have access to, through a single pane of glass, into like multimodal linkage opportunities to do some of the work around training and model development, so that they don't necessarily have to spend all of the time in that procurement phase or kind of the data plumbing phase to make all the data work together. And ultimately, we really believe that having an ability to have a secure research environment allows you to co-analyze like sensitive data sets with partners without compromising the safety. And that typically takes a very long time to stand up in between.
Yeah, for sure. And how do you see Verily's strategy for multimodal data? Because we know that the problem nowadays is really accessing multiple types of data, and that's what we at Segmed are trying to help with by making it available, basically medical images at scale, and how Verily is working with multimodal data, and what is your main goal there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as I mentioned, one of the studies that we did starting in 2017 was like the baseline health study, and we actually took in pretty much every type of data that you can think about on a patient. And I think really from that, we were able to derive such unique insights that we believe it's critical to have as many varieties of data as you can. And so we have been working with a number of organizations, and so Segmed has a great medical imaging data and clinical linking as well. But we also have really large genomic data sets. We have also, the wastewater data set, for example, and some other proprietary data sets. But we also have a number of third parties and really large organizations like the All of Us Research that are also coming up and bringing data sets. And so having the data sets all in one location essentially allows you to co-analyze and actually create multimodal data sets a lot easier.
Very cool. Martin, I think you participated as a researcher in a baseline study, right? From your time at Stanford?
Yeah, that's right. When I was at Stanford, I helped with defining the imaging protocols for the cardiovascular, like the CT scans that a part of the patients got, or part of the participants got at the baseline study, indeed. Yeah.
That's great.
That it kind of like makes the
full circle
around. Yep. We're back with Verily, so that's cool.
Do you want to take the next question, Martin?
Yes, definitely. With regards to the baseline study, so that's clearly like a prospective observational study. I think the platform right now is very focused on having some of those big studies like All of Us and baseline on there, and also like a retrospective real world data, like what's coming from Segmed, for example. Does Verily have any plans to start something new and big, like the baseline study? I can imagine it's like a huge effort to do something like that again, but are there any plans?
We do. We actually have I would say like the next generation study that we have, which is the lifelong health study. And a couple of things that we learned, one about giving, as I mentioned, like giving the patient empowerment around their health, but also as we talked and worked with a number of life science clients around their own clinical trials or digital biomarker studies, we really learned about the importance that a patient, right, actually has their healthcare really throughout their life, right? They don't want maybe just disease care, and they really are lacking a way to actually have a comprehensive view of both their healthcare and their disease care across providers and across the treatments that they're on. And so we have launched the Lifelong Health Study. It formally came out and kind of generally available in February of this year, had been previously in beta, but it really allows any healthcare consumer in the US to download the Verily Me app through their Apple or Google stores, and then receive essentially treatment through our virtual care program. They have full access to their own healthcare records, and then can use kind of the AI assistant. And that for those participants in Verily Me who consent into research, we're creating the Lifelong Health Study. And so those participants will be able to participate in specific research programs, or also our general Lifelong Health Study program will be collecting and integrating, in addition to their longitudinal record, they'll have wearable data available, and script data available, and we can also collect patient-reported outcomes at scale with full recontactability. And so that's really allowing us to create essentially the next data set. And we have a cardiometabolic cohort speaking of your background and doing work with us on cardiovascular, but that cardiometabolic cohort is our first pre-configured cohort that's available, but we're working with a number of partners right now to actually build their specific cohorts at scale.
Awesome. That's exciting and yeah, cool developments. With regards to the platform today, based on your presentation and all the things you're saying here during the Q&A, it's clear there is a lot of value for pharma and life science researchers to gain. Do you think there's also an interest for different kinds of researchers, like that are working in the medical device industry or like typical AI developers, to go to the platform and get the data from the Exchange platform, for example?
Yeah, really, really interesting. So a really large portion of researchers are certainly from health systems that are active on the platform today. And that's really because you can complement essentially multiple sets of data types. So we do actually see a really wide variety of participants in the research community, not just in life science or just in pharmaceuticals. But we also, with medical device companies, we also see a lot of interest and opportunity in bringing in maybe outside data that is not coming in only around their products. So it's important that you have access to these data sets that are outside of your own like clinical trials or outside of your own research labs. And so it's important to, especially where like Segmed is, has the imaging, right, to be able to train their new devices on some of that data as well.
Got it. In terms of use cases, so when I look from the Segmed perspective, imaging data, specifically radiology data, is very often used for researchers that are in the oncology space, specifically like solid tumors, cardiovascular space, and then also neurology space. Think about Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and things like that. What do you think? While building the Verily platform, is there a specific aim at specific therapeutic areas that you want to get more data or more interest in, or is it really all over and just anything can be there? What's kind of the strategy there?
Yeah, I think we absolutely see historically we have had very strong relationships in many of the areas that you mentioned, including things like neurology through our partnerships with the Michael J. Fox Foundation or Target ALS. And so those organizations have worked with us quite closely over a number of years in doing different types of studies, whether it's a genomic study or releasing their own research data sets for their researchers who they're hoping to develop new treatments. We also, as you mentioned, with the baseline health study, and then also our Light Path Care program, which does focus on like weight loss and obesity programs, have a very strong cardiometabolic focus. But generally, we really support pretty much any therapeutic area. The fundamental basis of the Verily Pre platform is that it is multimodal and very opinionated from a healthcare perspective, but can do the full range. I think we're excited, particularly like for Segmed and having the breast cancer data set now, and then we're excited as you think about maybe lung cancer coming on next. So I think we're really looking at that as a great add in terms of the depth for oncology.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah, and actually, we're also working on, as you mentioned before, but some other data sets, and amongst others is a GLP-1 data set of patients that are using GLP-1s and getting longitudinal imaging information and also additional clinical information on top of that. I think that's going to be an exciting data set as well. That's outside of the oncology realm.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I think we see a lot of like requests for that the GLP-1 impact on things like eyesight. And so those are certainly things that we'll look forward to.
Yeah. One thing we are starting to expand into, and we have some data already from, is not just radiology but also ophthalmology data indeed. So this could be of interest there. One one additional question is, a lot of the data on the Exchange platform are like pre-built data sets with a specific disease or specific therapeutic area in mind. Do you think at some point there will be an opportunity for fit-for-purpose data sets where clients could build their own data sets, which I can imagine is going to be like a next step that might take some time, but how are your thoughts around fit-for-purpose?
Yeah, that's actually available today. That is the intent with the Precision Health platform, and really what we talk about with Refinery and Workbench. So we have entered into a partnership with CU or Colorado in the full health system there, and so we're really working with them closely to access like their full scope of data from the health system. So wherever that data is, right, and as you can imagine within a large health system, it can be on a physical server, it can be in one of several clouds, it can be in third-party solutions, and to really help them accelerate the ability to bring that data together to refine it into usable data types, and then to create insights and actions based on that data. So you can think about, they may be like developing models, they may be developing data collections for use, but they may also be developing care models where they're saying, based on this information, maybe we should be intervening earlier or suggesting that patients of a certain disease need to have a procedure or shouldn't have a procedure based on kind of what they're able to do like within the platform. And so we have some of those use cases actually on the platform today, and expect that a number of other companies that are coming on board to our pre-platform will be expanding their use cases.
That's super interesting. Denise, where do you see the biggest near-term impact? Is it in drug development or maybe clinical trials, defining cohorts for study, or perhaps diagnostics? Where do you see the biggest impact?
Yeah, that's always a tough one. I think the most the impact is really significant across the board. I think in the near term, we see a significant amount in the diagnostic space, really the development and validation of foundational AI models. That's really accelerating. We see ground truth labels being derived like from radiology reports via traditional natural language processing, as well as more modern AI ML approaches. And so engineers can really, by benchmark diagnostic grade algorithms like more accurately than before. I think for things, I think actually breast cancer, just drawing back from my time at Watson Health, right? Breast cancer imaging through AI was really challenging, probably like 10 years ago, where people still didn't know whether or not to trust it. And so we did a lot of concordance studies, right, where we actually had to prove that what AI was developing was actually as good as essentially like a second reviewer, right? And so we've really been able to advance that. And now with the advancement of just cloud computing power, and then also the development of more advanced, robust AI models and platforms being accessible, I think having that data up there just makes that life just much more accessible than it has been before. We also see a really large opportunity in clinical trials in terms of using real world imaging to build like external control arms. So I think where we've seen that, and you guys might be better able to talk about this, but I think you guys have already enabled like some high fidelity external control arms for things like pancreatic cancer, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and I think that's an area I actually worked like with Celgene and Abraxane trying to do their late stage like pancreatic cancer trials, and I'll tell you that was a huge challenge for us just because you didn't have that much amount of data. So happy if you want to add anything there, since you're the experts in that. I think that's one of the areas that we definitely see a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, external control arms are a good use case for real world data, and we've been supporting some companies in that in that area. Yeah, that's a huge need and a good use case, especially for oncology patients. So one question that I have is, well, Segmed just very recently joined Workbench and Exchange platform. So before that, what is the lack that you see for imaging data, and imaging data including radiology, nuclear medicine, ophthalmology, dermatology? So how does imaging complement other data types that you had already available in the platform?
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited to have Segmed as part of it, because imaging is just a critical source of that physical and anatomical data. So it provides a lot more biomarkers, which we can combine with like the molecular and clinical data to have a whole picture of not just the disease, but more importantly, like the disease progression. So genomics, which we've had, right, tells you really about the patient's potential for the disease, but imaging really allows you to say, what is the expression of the disease in real time. So when we host Segmed imaging on Verily Pre, we can access the already research-ready and pre-linked modality. So when a research wants to access the cohort, the 3D imaging is already paired with the biopsy-proven clinical outcomes and longitudinal EHR data. So it's much more comprehensive and a complete view of the patient than before. And really having it in the exchange essentially allows folks to access it through the workbench and extend the foundation further, so that they can maybe correlate specific features or do further research through like appending things like a patient-reported outcome or lab data.
Yeah, makes sense. So we have a question in the chat from Sam. He's curious where Verily sees biospecimens in the context of multimodal data, both in terms of the market need within precision health and Verily's strategy for biospecimens.
Yeah, we have a lot of interest and need from both large research organizations and life science clients that are evaluating how to get more value from their biospecimen repositories. So we've talked with a lot of clients about the amount of data that is just like kind of sitting and locked up in their own data sets, and how do you kind of get that data into a more easily available or accessible way. So again, like that's something where Refinery actually helps a lot, because we can ingest different types of healthcare data and then curate it and then create data collections. And those data collections, like for example, Segmed's data that's up there now is a data collection, but internally research organizations can also create their own data collections to be exchanged internally within their team. So if you think about wanting to create a internal way to look at your biospecimen data, I think that's a really hot topic of interest these days and aligns well with the precision health platform.
Yeah, that's very interesting. The biospecimens like just laying there and nothing happening with it. And that's one of the reasons why we actually started Segmed, is we know there is a lot of data out there and it's not used for good purpose, but it actually can help a lot of people. So yeah, I like these kind of platforms where we make it more accessible for researchers to actually get access to data like imaging or biospecimen or things like that. We're nearing the 45-minute mark, Denise, so I will end here with one last question, and that is, what if we fast forward 5 to 10 years from now? How do you see the platform evolve and maybe the real world evidence research in general?
Yeah. I don't want to be held to the record for a forecast or a prediction, but I will say I think
we'll invite
that,
you again in 5 years. Sorry.
in 5 years, I do hope that we'll have essentially overcome the challenge of whether or not someone should be using AI. I think the question is how we use it and how we use it to complement and accelerate research and care. I think you'll see us go from this very static view that we have today, which is what is our research question? What data do we need? What model do we want? To more of an evergreen or integrated loop where we can actually, in more near real time, start querying multimodal data and making more important and relevant information at the point of care, so that we're just really compressing the overall drug development timelines and the overall care timelines to ultimately improve patient care.
Awesome.
I don't know, we'll get there in 5 years, maybe 10 years.
We'll invite you in 5 years and then in 10 years again and see where we are. Perfect.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, no, thank you for being here. We learned a lot about all the big Verily platform in general, and how Segmed integrates to that, and other data partners as well, of course. I specifically want to thank you, Denise, for a great and interesting presentation and afterwards Q&A session. I want to thank Aline for co-moderating with me, and I want to thank Andrea, who people here don't see, but she's behind the scenes actually organizing everything. Without her, there would be no Bytes of Innovation. And of course, I want to thank the audience for attending. The next Bytes of Innovation webinar will be on Wednesday, May 13th with Dr. Sangeeta Cook. So please join us then. And thanks again, Denise, for the presentation.
Thank you. We look forward to our future together.
Yes.
Thank you.